For a while now, I've been covering movies that have just come out and I've just seen in theaters. I've also covered a lot of superhero content. Well now, let's go back to a time before superhero movies were really all that popular. Sure, you had your Batmans and your X-Men, but Spider-Man in 2002 created a whole new formula for superheroes that lasted all the way up until the MCU kinda trashed all that in 2008. I think what Spider-Man did, though, revitalized the genre permanently, as after this, superhero movies were more open to being comic bookish, while still telling a genuine down-to-earth story. Like, if you look at the Batman movies before this, most of them have the main villain either be a sex-freak child murderer, or a stand-up comedian wielding the kill-everybody ray, and it took a bit to find a middle ground. So clearly, Spider-Man is very iconic and important for the genre, but a little dated. It's actually very dated, and I think I let that get in the way of me enjoying it before, but this time, walking into the theaters, I decided to embrace it and have the best time I could have. And I actually liked it more than I ever have, go figure. Spoilers for Spider-Man if you haven't seen it, but I would be very surprised if that's the case and you still clicked on this video. Something I noticed this time that I liked about this movie is the pacing, which makes itself apparent almost immediately. It's super fast a lot of the time, but it doesn't feel rushed, rather like it's getting to the point. No waiting around or anything, Peter gets his powers like 2 scenes into the movie. He's going on a school project? Oh, he must be introducing new characters and developing the relationship. Nope, those are spiders. We're at the spider exhibit. I've noticed a lot of newer superhero content has the origin story conclude with the person getting their powers, but this one starts with it, allowing for a more gradual build-up into Peter becoming the savior of the city. We also get 2 origins at the same time, since we're constantly cutting between Peter and Norman Osborn, Willem Dafoe, Green Goblin. The thing with Goblin is that he brings a lot of chaos energy to the movie. As soon as Norman turns, we get him hissing and screeching, he nukes a military base in like 2 seconds, and then turns the people on the balcony into skeletons. Sometimes he even goes after the audience. There are multiple points where Gobby just shows up to freak you out with a jump scare, and that's the Sam Raimi special. I think it's amazing. The Goblin really does seem like a freaky, ghostly ghoul instead of just a suit. He's goofy as all hell, but you still believe that he could rip Peter apart within a second, because he's even more bloodthirsty and ruthless than I ever remembered. He's got a problem with someone, he just kills him. 99% of the time, someone who opposes Norman will die in the next scene. The rest of the supporting cast is filled with classics. J.K. Simmons as JJJ doesn't show up for a while, but when he does, he's as incredible as ever. It's nice to be able to laugh at this movie unironically, and it's also nice to laugh along with an entire audience of people. Some of Jameson's lines made the whole theater erupt even after 22 years, and they even get some depth into his character when he refuses to tell Goblin Peter's name. To be honest, he might be my favorite character, but I gotta stop talking about him. MJ was probably my most improved player this time around. I never found her relationship with Peter all that compelling, and I still do think it's one of the only outdated parts of the movie that isn't super funny. Some of their lovey-dovey scenes are just awkward. But despite taking up the damsel in distress role, she doesn't feel one note. She comes out of an abusive household, something I never remembered, sticks up for, constantly speaks to, and hangs out with Peter, and at the end of the movie, she even saves herself with an insane grip on that bar. Holy shit. She's likable and emotionally strong, which I find really cool. Harry, on the other hand, is pretty lame. James Franco seems uncomfortable in this role. He's really quiet all the time, and when he tries to get mad, he's still holding back. Honestly, I think James Franco just didn't really know if he was meant to play Harry as a cool guy, or as a nerd loser, so he kinda did both at the same time, and it's distracting. Rounding out the supporting cast is Aunt May and Uncle Ben. These 2 are just straight up charming. Obviously, Uncle Ben's gotta give some inspirational messages and then get capped, but what the 2 of them provide is a sense of normalcy. They never go past being regular people just trying to get by. They don't interfere with Peter's superhero life, and they aren't some masterful, wise senseis, just good parental figures. But okay, I can't help it anymore. I have to talk about the datedness. There's so much funny shit, man. Let's start with my favorite, the wrestling match. Peter needs money to buy a cool car and impress MJ, which ends up never actually happening. He signs up for this wrestling match knowing he's going to win because of his powers. When he comes out to fight, he's going up against a guy named, get this, Bonesaw, and the audience are holding little homemade cardboard saws to show that they're fans. Since Peter looks like a stupid little loser, Bonesaw's hype women just fucking bully him so badly for no reason, and it goes on for like 30 seconds. While this is happening, we cut to the audience again and see that they've switched to holding up multiple coordinated signs spelling out, kill him. Peter gets in the ring and starts beating the shit out of Bonesaw while also calling him gay, and every punch he lands is accentuated with a hilarious punching sound effect while his enemy flies like 10 feet away. That's not just this scene, by the way, that happens in every fight. And then, of course, the audience cheers despite the fact that they wanted this guy dead like 2 minutes ago, and then he never shows up again. The visual effects also aged badly, but that's obvious. Spidey bouncing around and swinging through the city kinda looks like shit sometimes, but it doesn't look much worse than X-Men a year before. Most of the time I can forgive this, but it does get distracting every once in a while. One time it really caught me off guard was during the upside-down MJ kiss scene. Of course this is an iconic scene, and it's a good one, but it concludes with two very noticeable, strange editing moments. As the shot of the kiss is ending, MJ is still sorta kissing Peter's chin for some reason, and then they cut to him swinging off and she's like 6 inches away, and then you get a random shot of slow-mo like it's Madam Web's third act. I actually would sorta like the slow-mo if the shot lasted more than half a second. It's there and it's gone. The shot continuity and editing will sometimes fuck with you, and I can't always ignore it. Plus, while I'm getting through negatives, I can't help but mention a nitpick I have. Peter is really bad at hiding his secret identity. Like, aggressively bad. He takes off his mask as the human spider at the wrestling match, and I guess he couldn't anticipate that he would become a superhero, but he could definitely be identified because of this when Spider-Man shows up. If you can forget that though, how about him very obviously shooting a web during the festival scene with no suit on, and then pulling out his suit while clearly running past multiple people? Come on, Peter. Now let's skip to the end. Goblin has tried to convince Peter to switch to his side by saying that if he does, less innocents will die, but it ain't working. Norman discovers Peter's secret identity in this very suspenseful dinner scene that I absolutely adore, and Harry lets slip that Peter loves MJ, so Norman kidnaps her as well as a bunch of random kids. Peter saves both of them, although there is one point where he's walking away from the falling box of children and it looks like he's just gonna let them die, which is hilarious, so the two move their fight to this random abandoned building and we get our conclusion. There's a few things I love about this scene. First of all, it is really brutal. I forgot how PG-13 this movie was. When Ben Parker said ass, I was really surprised because I've always seen this movie as wholesome, but no, it gets bloody. This is Sam Raimi after all, so things are gonna get a little fucked. Then there's Willem Dafoe's performance. He rapidly switches between Norman and Goblin without the mask on, and hell, he had me convinced that he was innocent for a second there. And finally, the kill. Peter dodging Norman's glider with his spidey sense and it hitting him in the chest instead is so goddamn creative. We've had this for so long that it doesn't feel creative because it's been parodied and called back to a bunch, but I really enjoy that this movie uses Spider-Man's spidey sense, because I feel like it's often forgot about somehow. I'm not sure how I feel about Harry thinking Spider-Man murdered his father and pulling a gun on him, but we'll see how the next movie deals with that if I get the chance to see it. And that's Spider-Man 2002, the OG. I've not even seen it that many times, but the amount of quotables in this thing made me excited for each and every scene. This is truly a movie to be seen in the theaters. I went to a big theater on a day when it was only one showing, 7 p.m., and the place was packed. People were unafraid to laugh and applaud, and shit, that felt good. This changed things. No matter how many better versions we've gotten of Spider-Man, of superhero movies, of action movies, this is unforgettable and it changed so much. Originally I would have given this a 7, but I had too much fun to not give it an 8 out of 10. What it also did was rejuvenate my excitement for the other two. Spider-Man 2 has always been said to be a classic, so maybe my already high opinion of that will increase. And hell, Spider-Man 3 is probably the one I'm most hyped to check out. If I get the chance, and if I don't have anything else to cover, well damn, I'll be back for another review of another Tobey Spidey flick. I'll see you next time. Like, subscribe, all the things, and scram, get out of here. Bye now.